Sarah always believed marriage was built on two things: trust and loyalty. She and her husband, Daniel, had been married for 12 years. They had two children, Emily, who was 10, and Jacob, who was 7. Their life wasn't extravagant, but it was steady. Sarah worked part-time as a librarian, and Daniel was an accountant at a mid-sized firm. From the outside, everything looked perfectly fine. But Sarah would soon discover that appearances could be the greatest illusion of all. It all began with small things. Daniel had always been transparent with his phone, but suddenly, he started keeping it face down on the table. He used to leave it charging in the kitchen at night, but now he kept it on his nightstand, locked with a new passcode. Sarah tried not to assume the worst. Maybe it was stress from work, she told herself. Maybe he had confidential client information that he didn't want lying around. But in her heart, the unease grew. Daniel's group of friends, Mark, Jason, and Kyle, had always been a part of their lives. They were close since college, and their wives and girlfriends occasionally joined family barbecues and holiday parties. Over the years, Sarah grew to trust them as much as Daniel did. They were loud, funny, and full of inside jokes Sarah sometimes didn't understand, but she believed they were all loyal friends who had Daniel's best interest at heart. One evening, while preparing dinner, Sarah overheard Daniel on the phone in the garage. His voice was low and urgent, and though she couldn't make out every word, she caught phrases like "don't tell her" and "she'll never understand." Her stomach twisted into knots. That night, when she tried to ask him about it, Daniel brushed it off, saying it was just work stuff. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Weeks passed, and the distance between them grew. Daniel spent more evenings out, claiming he was working late or meeting friends for a quick catch-up. Sarah wanted to believe him, but something inside her kept whispering that the truth was darker. Her intuition, which she had learned never to ignore, told her that Daniel wasn't being honest. The breaking point came one Saturday afternoon. Sarah had taken Emily and Jacob to the park. On their way home, they passed by a restaurant, and Sarah's eyes froze on the scene unfolding inside. There was Daniel, laughing with his friends. It wasn't the laughter that hurt. It was the fact that they were raising glasses in a toast, and at the center of the table lay a set of papers with Daniel's name highlighted at the top. Sarah's instinct screamed at her. Something wasn't right. That evening, after putting the kids to bed, Sarah confronted Daniel. She asked him why he had lied about working late when she had seen him at the restaurant. At first, he looked caught off guard, then angry, then defensive. "Why were you spying on me?" he asked. His words cut deeper than she expected. She hadn't been spying. She had simply stumbled upon the truth he was so desperately hiding. After hours of pushing, the truth came out like a dam breaking. Daniel admitted that he and his friends had been secretly investing money together, using funds Daniel had pulled from their joint savings account, without telling her. He had trusted his friend's advice and thought it would be a smart move, but the investments were risky, and they were already losing money. Sarah's heart sank. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the betrayal. She had trusted Daniel to make decisions with her, as a partner. And worse, his friends, men she had welcomed into her home, had encouraged him to lie, to keep her in the dark. They had all betrayed her trust. For days, Sarah felt like she was drowning. She still went through the motions, packing the kids' lunches, showing up at work, folding laundry, but inside, she was broken. Every time she looked at Daniel, she saw not the man she had married, but a stranger who had chosen deception over honesty. The friends she had laughed with around bonfires and Christmas dinners now felt like shadows conspiring against her. One night, after another tense argument with Daniel, Sarah sat alone at the kitchen table. She pulled out old photo albums, flipping through pages of happier times. There was their wedding day, Daniel's nervous smile as he held her hand. There were the children's birthdays, family vacations, Sunday picnics. Tears blurred her vision. How had it all gone so wrong? But as the days passed, Sarah realized she had a choice. She could let this betrayal define her, or she could reclaim her strength. She decided to speak with Daniel's friends directly. She arranged a meeting at their home, asking them to come over one evening. They arrived, somewhat hesitant, and Sarah, with a calm but firm voice, laid out her feelings. "I trusted you," she said, her voice steady though her hands trembled. "I opened my home to you, treated you like family. But you encouraged Daniel to lie to me, to take money that was meant for our family's future. That's not friendship. That's betrayal." The room fell silent. Mark shifted uncomfortably, Jason avoided her eyes, and Kyle muttered an apology. For the first time, Sarah saw guilt on their faces. Daniel sat beside her, his head lowered. It was a moment of truth, not just for him, but for all of them. In the weeks that followed, Daniel tried to make amends. He promised to rebuild the savings, to never hide financial decisions from her again. He cut back on nights out, distancing himself from the friends who had influenced him. But for Sarah, the healing wasn't instant. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. She insisted on counseling, and Daniel reluctantly agreed. Through therapy, Sarah found her voice. She learned to set boundaries and demand honesty. Daniel, for his part, began to understand the weight of his choices. Slowly, painfully, they worked through the layers of anger and disappointment. Some days were harder than others, but Sarah never stopped reminding herself that her strength came not from what Daniel or his friends had done, but from her own ability to rise after being broken. Years later, Sarah would look back on that season of her life not just as a story of betrayal, but as a story of survival. She learned that trust can be rebuilt, but only when both people are willing to fight for it. And she learned that sometimes the people closest to you, the ones you think are on your side, can cause the deepest wounds. But she also discovered that even in the darkest moments, there is light. For Sarah, that light was her children, her resilience, and her refusal to let betrayal define her story.